Hello, good morning. My name is Sophie. I am a maths tutor and founder of Tutor in a Box. And today I am going to be going through probability with you guys. Now, I personally love statistics and probabilities, and I think it's wonderful. And there's so much awesome stuff there, and it really helps us understand things. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about what probabilities are, how we get to them, and all those kinds of good stuff. And hopefully you've got your little sheet from your pack and from your box. And that's got some really useful information on, and we're just going to be covering some of that as we go through. So first things first about probability. Most people say, well, what is a probability? And why is it important? A probability is just a way of saying how likely or unlikely something is to happen. So, for example, the probability, so I live in England, I live in the UK, and it is the middle of April, so spring, almost summer. The probability that it's snowing tomorrow is probably quite unlikely. Although we have had snow previously in England in April. It's actually quite dry outside, it's quite warm, it's quite nice, and probably not going to snow. So the probability of it snowing is quite low, and that might be 0.1 or whatever, 10% or similar. Equally, the probability that after this webinar I am going to go and grab another cup of coffee is 98%. I'm a huge coffee fan, love my coffee, and so the probability that I'm going to do that is probably very, very high. It's almost an absolute certain. So there might be some reason for whatever that I couldn't make my cup of coffee, so my coffee machine could break, there could be a fire evacuation in the building, or any other number of different things. But the chances of that happening are very slim, and the chances of me getting that coffee are quite high. So that's a probability. It tells you the likelihood of unlikely to something to happen. Now, we can express probabilities in either fractions, so the probability of something happening is a half, or we can express things as decimals, so for example 0.5, or as a percentage, so 50%. The important thing to remember is that with decimals, probabilities always add up to 1, okay? If the probability of my pen being blue is 0.4, then the probability of my pen not being blue is 0.6. It's 1 minus the probability of 0.4. So my probabilities always have to add up to 1. So 0.4 plus 0.6 is 1. If I had the probability of, I don't know, getting a cat at being 0.8, the probability of me not getting a cat is going to be 0.2. Together, all probabilities have to add up to 1. Okay? With me so far? Great stuff. So now I want to talk about different probabilities. There's equally likely probabilities, which is where you've got a 50-50% chance of something happening. We've got probabilities where something's far more likely to happen or not happen. Right, I'm going to show a game now, and we're going to work out the probability of something happening, okay? So imagine you've got some Skittles or some sweets or something like that, and I want you to pop them out. So if you can see my whiteboard, for example, let's just pretend I've got loads of sweets or Skittles, or I do love all those yummy stuff. Anyway, we've got some various different things. Okay, 6. That'll be fine. Okay, so imagine this is my collection of sweets or marbles or whatever else. In the exam, they tend to say marbles, but whatever, we get the idea. So if I want to work out the probability of selecting something, we just say, what's the chance of it happening over all the other probabilities happening, okay? Now, if a probability was equally likely to happen, then I would be looking at, for example, just my greens and just my yellows. Okay? The probability of picking a yellow or a green are equally likely. It's the same probability. Similarly, if I was looking at just blues or just greens, again, the probability of picking either one is equally likely. I've got 2 blues and I've got 2 greens. Now, if I start looking at more of them, so for example, if I start looking at these 4, I've got 2 yellows, 1 green and 1 blue. So suddenly these probabilities are different, okay? They're not equally likely. So the probability of me picking a yellow is 2, because I have 2 yellows, over the total number in my bag or in my basket or whatever, which is 4. And we can simplify this and we know this makes a half, okay? So if we're looking at just a specific section, we look at how many of them there are in it out of the total amount. Okay, let's try another one. So let's look at all of these ones here now, okay? So I've now got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different marbles or skittles or circles or whatever you want to call them. Yeah, the probability of me picking red, and we can sometimes write this by the probability of picking a red, equals, well, 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 4 red, so it's going to be 4 over the total amount, which we said was 10. 4 over 10 is also 40%, or, for those of you that like to work in decimals, 0.4. So my probability of red, I've got 1 red, 2 red, 3 red, 4 red. The probability of me picking the red is 4 over 10. I want you to pause this video and I want you to work out what the probability of is picking of a yellow. So what's the probability of picking a yellow? See if you can work it out. Okay, if you have had a chance to work it out, great stuff. If you haven't, no worries at all. So I'm going to write it down here, the probability of yellow. And the probability of yellow equals 1, 2. So we have 2 yellow ones over the whole amount, which we said was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's going to be 2 over 10, which we can simplify, or sorry, write as a percentage as 20%, or 0.2. So there you have it, the different probabilities and the ways of working out probabilities. Now, there are other things you'll see included in the pack, such as relative frequencies, expected frequencies, and independent and dependent events. I'm going to go through independent and dependent events and some of those other topics on the next thing, but the most important thing I wanted you to get hold of and understand today is what probabilities are. And so it's all about the chances of something happening, whether something's likely or unlikely to happen, and the kind of proportions we can associate with that, so the percentages, the fractions and the decimals, and some of that language. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully you've learned something. Any questions, as always, do get in touch. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in. Bye.